Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
Betrayal wears familiar faces. My wife, my brother. Together, in our bed, their whispers turned to laughter as they planned to erase me from existence. 15 years ago, I walked into that room and saw the truth. Raw, undeniable. They thought I'd vanish quietly. They made me a ghost to protect their lies. But ghosts don't stay silent. Now, as their perfect world crumbles under my cruel plan, the same faces that mocked me wear fear. Revenge isn't just justice, it's art. This isn't just my story. It's their downfall. And the end? Oh, it's only the beginning. We were sitting together after work on Friday at the local bar we like to visit. The four of us listened as Bill Chapman told us once more about his discovery that his wife of 25 years had not been faithful to him. The other three friends offered their help and pointed out what might happen if he chose to get a divorce. They had all been friends for years, and I had joined their group shortly after I moved to their small town. All five of us had served in the Marines. I came to Spuzzum, a coastal town, over 10 years ago after randomly picking a spot on a map. When I arrived, I bought the only grocery store for miles using a new business I had started. At that time, Spuzzum was a logging town with about 1,000 people living there. The nearest town was more than half an hour away. In a year, I grew the business, got a license to sell alcohol, and made the store 3 times bigger. Later, I added a gas station. The store had everything people needed. I hired 8 full-time employees and 6 part-time workers. After a year, I began to build a log home on some land I bought at a tax sale just outside of town. My 4 friends helped me design the house. Because they all worked at the mill, I could get the logs I needed at a good price, which saved me a lot of money. Now, I had a 3-bedroom, 2-level log home that overlooked the village and the coast. The only thing my friends worried about was that I had never married or dated since I arrived. People often said I liked my privacy, as no one had ever seen me pursue anyone. The women in town respected me, but soon understood I was happy being single. I was someone everyone could rely on, and they did. Everyone had a lot of questions about me, but they quickly learned that I was a very private person who didn't share much about my past. I had set up the company so it would cover all the taxes. Anything I took for personal use came from the company's money, so when I filed my personal taxes, it showed no income. I paid for everything in cash or with my debit card, and I didn't even have a personal credit card. The only change was that I used my second name instead of my first. The sign at the entrance to our village said, "Next stop, Japan." Nobody knew I had moved from New York to the Washington coast due to things that happened in my past. I often wondered what kind of person would name a place Spuzzum. After the second beer, we decided to end the evening because Bill's oldest son was coming home from college that night with his fiancée. Bill's wife had gone to Seattle to pick them up. We were all invited for a barbecue on Saturday to celebrate his graduation and engagement. Bill wanted to stay sober and ready when they arrived. He didn't want his future daughter-in-law to think of him as just the town drunk. Stephen had gotten a job with one of the largest investment firms in New York, and everyone knew how proud Bill was of him. I was the last to arrive, worried that one of my friends' wives might have brought someone to try and set me up. They treated it like a game, curious to find out more about my life. So I typically arrived last and left early. Connie, Bill's wife, spotted me pulling up in my restored 1940 Ford truck, which I cherished. "You need to meet Stephen's girlfriend. She's a redhead," she said. "Jennifer is 22 years old and has 2 sisters and 3 brothers. I fell in love with her the moment I met her. She has a wonderful heart. I wanted to give you a heads up because we both know that when you see a redhead, you tend to get quiet and distant. I wonder if it was a redhead that made you feel uneasy in the past. I can't say for sure since you don't talk about it much. Grab a cold drink before joining us in the backyard." After getting a cold drink, I headed to their backyard where everyone was gathered with their kids and a few friends. Stephen spotted me and ran over to give me a big hug. He thanked me again for helping him with school, then took me into the crowd to introduce his girlfriend. When he spoke her name, Jennifer turned toward me. My excitement quickly changed to shock, and I felt a wave of tension. I wanted to run away as the past came rushing back. Jennifer looked a lot like her mother and was one of identical triplets. The last time I saw her, her mother was in a difficult situation with my brother. I felt so nervous that I could hardly speak. Like her mother, Jennifer had a striking appearance, and she stood tall at 5'6". When she saw me, her bright blue eyes filled with joy, and tears started to form, even though her smile showed she was very happy. The moment carried so much emotion, reminding me of the pain and loss that I had faced. Seeing her as a lovely adult, that warm smile made me realize again just how much of my children's lives I had missed. "Oh my God, I can't believe it!" Jennifer cried with tears of happiness as she rushed towards me. "You're here, I knew it! My heart wouldn't let me believe you were gone. Our family told us you were lost, but I just couldn't accept it." The silence felt heavy. Everyone looked surprised, unsure of what to say or think. They must have been wondering about what had happened as Jennifer hugged me. We were both feeling a mix of disbelief and relief. Stephen broke the silence and asked, "You know Charlie? How?" "Charles's full name is Jonathan Charles Barnes III," Jennifer said with tears in her eyes. "He's my dad. I'd recognize his face anywhere. My family always claimed he had died because of money problems, but I always felt something was wrong. Whenever we asked about him, my Uncle James, my stepdad, went quiet. He always acted like that when he was hiding something. As we grew up, we learned that was his way of avoiding the truth." I held her tight, and she rested her face against my neck. We both cried. It had been 15 years since I had held one of my daughters like this. Back then, she was just 7 years old. In that moment, the love I had kept hidden came pouring out. Our emotions filled the room with our sobs. Knowing everyone was waiting for an explanation, I chose my words carefully to calm us both. I was distanced from my family so they could keep their secrets. At that time, it was important for them to protect the family image. I had to sign an agreement and disappear. This all began when I unexpectedly came home to find my older brother with my wife, who is Jennifer's mother. I had forgotten a briefcase with important papers after dropping off the girls at school. I saw what was happening before I left. My brother and my wife didn't know I was there until the end. I recorded their conversation on my phone before I confronted them, but they showed no guilt or regret. After showing the video to the judge, our families decided they had to handle the situation to protect their political futures. It was also done so my brother, the chosen one, could marry my wife, I explained through tears. Marrying a woman with 3 daughters would help him in his political ambitions. Time has shown that this was true. For over 15 years, to those who knew the family's secrets, including her mother, I have felt lost. Now I am just Charlie Barnes, nothing more. If fate had not intervened, no one would have known the truth, I said firmly. I never imagined the truth would come out. Everyone was shocked. Some looked uncomfortable. I noticed Connie looking down, trying to disguise her own regret. I could see she was holding back tears. For the first time, she was starting to realize the consequences of her actions. Little did she know that once the truth was revealed, everything would change. No one, unless they had faced similar struggles, could truly understand the hidden hurt. Holding my daughter in my arms for the first time in years made me reflect on the unintentional outcomes of family secrets. At that moment, a wave of shame washed over me. My tears started to flow again. For my daughter and me, our healing was just beginning. According to my grandfather, 2 things mattered most in life: money and power. Everything else was just noise. He had both. My first mistake was not talking to him after learning about my wife and brother. I was emotionally shaken. At that time, the judge was being considered for the Supreme Court, and a scandal could ruin his chances. By the time I finished explaining what I had found, he was already thinking of ways to keep it from becoming public. He watched the video, and I had never seen him show such strong feelings before. His first call was to my wife Joan's father, a senator from Maine. He told Raymond Thompson about what I had recorded. I sent the video to him. Joan's father was clearly angry and said he would take a private jet to meet us. They both agreed that nothing would happen until the 3 of us had a chance to talk. Before calling again, he turned on a recording device for the upcoming conversation. With a serious look, he called my wife. Listening to his side of the call revealed a storm of sharp words that would have seemed funny if the situation hadn't felt so heavy. He confronted her firmly, making it clear that she and my brother had acted recklessly. "If this gets out, Your father's career is finished, and so is mine. None of this would be happening, Joan, if you had handled these situations better. It wouldn't have been an issue, but James is family, and the media will blow it out of proportion. My grandfather warned that reporters would make wild claims. He put his finger to his lips to tell me to be quiet, then switched the phone to speaker. He asked Joan if her 3 daughters were really mine. She said yes. My grandfather then asked, "How do you know for certain? Maybe we should have a test." Joan became upset and said her affair with James didn't start until 3 years ago, insisting that there had been no others. The judge asked why anyone should trust her. She mentioned that she was on birth control to avoid having more children, which made people question her loyalty. My grandfather then asked if she loved John. She answered, "Yes, I have always loved him. But that feeling has changed. I used to love him like a wife loves her husband. But now it feels more like the love between a sister and her brother." Her words hit me hard. The judge noticed my pain and understood how it affected me. Joan admitted both she and James played a part in the situation. She realized that if she had put as much effort into her marriage as John did, things might have been different. Joan explained how their feelings for each other grew unexpectedly, and they tried to keep it a secret from John until he found out. From her tone, it was clear she showed no regret. My grandfather saw the tears on my face. The reality of their choices was sinking in. He asked Joan again if she loved James to be sure. She replied yes, saying that when John learned the truth, he left. James then asked her to be with him, and she agreed. My grandfather questioned their choices and what kind of person would let something like this happen, expressing disbelief at how they treated another person. "Do you think John deserved this?" Joan said they wouldn't stop John from seeing the kids when it was possible since James wanted to run for office. Everything would need to be handled carefully and quietly. Publicly, James would need to act like their new dad, while John would be seen as the distant uncle. As you know, courts are often reluctant to give full custody to fathers. My grandfather said, "I guess all I have left to say to James or you is that once we sort this out, I don't want to talk to either of you again. In my eyes, both James and you are out of my life." He then ended the call, clearly upset. I had never seen him so angry. After a long hush, he looked at me and said, "Remember the hurt and the loss. They have made it clear that you are no longer a part of their lives or your children's lives. They think it would be better for everyone if you weren't around. What they see as small matters to them are more important than you. Do you think they meant to get caught? It sure seems that way from where I sit, and if that's true, it's very sad. One day you will have the chance to find a solution. When that day comes, be strong in how you respond, but also give them a chance to think about what they have done. Remember, those who betray often go back to their old ways. Listen, Jennifer, this was never my choice. The 2 families thought it was best after hearing the call your mother had with the judge. Joan and James put their jobs and lives at risk. I understood they had to be protected too, I said while holding her close. I can explain that call later. It will help you understand better, but for now, let's relax and enjoy the rest of this special day. Jennifer lifted her head from my shoulder and smiled. She took my hand and turned to her future husband. "Stephen, thank you for bringing me here. You helped my dad come back into my life. Dad, please don't go before we talk, okay?" I nodded, and with that, the barbecue resumed. After finishing my drink, I let out a loud burp and everyone laughed. I heard Jennifer say, "That's the dad I remember. He used to make everyone laugh." Bill and I went to get some cold drinks. Jennifer was always close to Stephen, but while I was there, she kept her eyes on me. "You really impress me," Bill said. "Here I am, thinking about my problems with my wife's choices. You just sat there quietly, and now I see why. What you went through makes my issues seem small. I have a new way of looking at things. I don't know how you dealt with it, but I understand why you choose to go your own way. Can you give me some advice?" I laughed and said, "Encourage Connie to go to marriage counseling with you. Tell her you need to understand why she acted the way she did before you can forgive her. Each session will help her face the feelings she has. It's clear she still cares about you, and knowing what happened will help with healing and forgiveness. Also, I think your son picked a wonderful partner." This made us both smile, and we returned to join the party. We had mostly cleaned up the preparations Bill and Connie had made when Bill stood up with Connie beside him, taking everyone's attention. Most of you don't know this, but our son Stephen graduated without debt, thanks to a private scholarship from my good friend Charlie, who is also my son's future father-in-law. Jennifer, welcome to the family. If you have even half the strength and wisdom your father has, my son is a very lucky man, Bill said. Connie added, to my new daughter and my son, always remember that you are only human. There will be times when you face difficulties that may feel too big to handle. Bill and I thought we were at our breaking point, but we found good advice. As a result, we will be seeking professional help. Remember, it's easy to say I'm sorry, but understanding why things happen is important for moving forward. Never let pride stand in the way of your marriage. Everyone nodded and raised their glasses for a toast. Later, as I was saying goodbye, Connie came up to me with a thankful smile. Thank you for helping my husband and me to try again. We will get some help to work things out. My family is really grateful to you. I looked around for Jennifer, but she was gone. As I walked into the house toward the front door, I saw 2 suitcases by the entrance. I hope you're not leaving without me, Dad, my daughter said. Steve thinks I should stay here with you now that we are back. It will be a good chance for us to bond. After all, I expect my real father to walk me down the aisle. I couldn't help but laugh again. It was funny watching her drive the old Ford home. She had never driven a stick shift before. I just watched while thinking about how much a new transmission might cost because she kept using the clutch wrong and grinding the gears. The winding gravel driveway to my house was tricky for her. She stalled out several times. It made me laugh, but it was a simple memory I would always cherish. Once we got into my home, I started the wood stove to warm up the space. I then showed her around after putting her suitcases in what would now be her room. By the time the tour was over, she really loved my log home. Each bedroom felt special, all with their own bathrooms. The open kitchen with a pantry beside it and the big dining and living rooms made it feel spacious, along with the office, half bathroom, and stairs at the end of the hall. We saved the office for last, so I could let her hear a conversation my grandfather recorded many years ago. After listening, she asked if she could have a copy. I copied it to a USB stick and gave it to her. I also transferred a video of them together. She noticed that the files were made just 2 days before I was said to have passed away. I left her there, filled with emotion, as she went through a mix of feelings from love to betrayal. Hearing the voice of someone she cared about, speaking about things that were not true, must have really shaken her trust. I went into the kitchen, poured us each a glass of juice, and sat on the couch looking out at the village lights below when she finally came to join me. I could see her eyes were red and puffy from crying. She sat next to me, and I wrapped my arms around her, holding her close without saying anything. The glasses were nearly empty before my daughter spoke. All my life I have been told they grew closer after your passing until they realized they had fallen in love and then got married. It was the biggest wedding that year in the state, Jennifer said. But my mother's voice proves everything they said was a lie. It's hard for me to understand why they were so cold to you. Did they hate you? Mother claimed she loved you until the end. It makes me question if anything they told us was true. It's going to take time for you to figure it out. I still don't understand it all either. And there might not be a clear answer, I replied. Their marriage might not even be legal. If that comes out, it could hurt James's chance of being re-elected to the Senate. I have a copy of the agreement I signed with the judge and your mother's father. It explains what I had to do and why it was important. I will give you a copy before you leave. They took us kids from you and changed our lives in ways we will never fully understand, Jen said. It feels like they acted like they had all the power. What I don't understand is why you let them. First, I was in a tough spot. My grandfather believed until the end that they planned everything. They depended on the idea that the rest of the family had too much to lose and would do anything to keep it quiet. Their actions proved him right. For your mother and my brother, there was no downside, so they kept everything. My old business lost a lot of its money. My ex took the company public and changed my stake into shares to get the funds needed. This kept things out of public view. Both the judge and your mother's father moved funds to a new company in my name to help me start over far away, I explained. Joan and James thought that a rich family could find a way to make everything disappear. They relied on that, and time showed they were correct. Now everything I do is through that company, so I don't have personal income to report. This makes it harder for anyone to track me. The international company is in a place with no taxes, and every dollar I take comes from saved profits. I manage many of the company's investments from my computer room, and they are doing well, I continued. My grandfather told me that one day the truth would come out, but I had to promise to wait until then. Only then would I be truly free. He believed it would be the truth about what happened that would bring them down. Now that you know, as I walk you down the aisle, many will see my face. They won't be able to escape their past any longer. It will become public. This job makes it look like I have a normal life, I said. Our wedding is planned for August 6th. They've already booked the hall, the church, and sent out the invitations. Grandfather Barnes was supposed to walk me down the aisle, but once he hears about our talk, he will happily give his spot to you, Jen said. With my contacts in the media, I want to share the news the Sunday before my wedding and start looking for your death certificate. I want those two to face the consequences for what they did. Can I tell your dad that you are alive when this news comes out? Why didn't you remarry and start a new life? Yes, you can tell my dad, but I think he might already suspect that I'm still alive. The answer to her second question was straightforward. Your mother and I are still married, I explained. I might not be legally dead, so I couldn't remarry. Deep down, I couldn't let my desires hurt anyone else. The price I paid was living alone. My values wouldn't let me act like them. Finally, it dawned on Jen, as her face showed surprise for the first time. She recognized the difference between her mother, my brother, and me. It had to hit her that this difference really mattered. Dad, you've been trapped. They took away your life and your children. They made it hard for you to start a new family. You were held back and forced to play their games. You are free now, but it's not the same. Does that make sense? Jen asked. Yes, it does, but I also made mistakes because I could have chosen differently, I said. Instead, I focused on the needs of both families. I left her, walked back into the computer room, and took down a large binder from the shelves. I returned to her and placed the binder in front of her, asking her to start looking through it while I filled our glasses. Jen was amazed. The binder was full of moments from her life, every announcement, public appearance, play she took part in, and copies of her report cards. I had collected everything I could from her journey. She was surprised by how much she had forgotten. We talked late into the night as she shared her feelings about the memories I had never brought up. She went to bed knowing she had always been loved by me. I told her I had a similar binder for each of her sisters that I hoped to share with them someday. She stayed for 2 weeks, spending time between Stephen's family and me. By the time she left, we were closer than before. I felt grateful to have her back in my life. On the last Friday of July, I made plans to buy stock from the company I used to own. Its current value was $129 a share. I was making a big investment in my future. By the end of the day, I owned over 1 million shares. Jennifer's mother was the current CEO. All my original shares were supposed to be in my trust for my children until they turned 25. That's how it had been set up, but it could have changed. When I left 15 years ago, the company's estimated value was about $45 a share. Bill, Connie, and I were scheduled to fly out the following Thursday on a private jet I had booked. Jennifer had kept her promise to keep quiet, but she called me every day to update me on what was going on, using Stephen's phone. I had told my stockbroker to keep buying shares until August 5th, and only sell those bought at the highest price to cover the costs needed for that day. On Sunday morning, the talk about the late judge and my wife caught people's attention, along with a video that intrigued many. A well-known website saw a lot of visitors because of it. The news media covered the story widely, leading to a search for my death certificate, a divorce record, and other documents linked to my estate. People started asking questions about how I was supposed to have died. Was I hurt? It was 7 in the morning on the West Coast when my daughter called from New York at 11 p.m. She thought the news was quite shocking. Her mother and stepfather were very worried. Jennifer's sisters, Judy and Joanne, were trying to get answers from their mother. Joan and James wouldn't respond to their questions. One main question was whether our father was still alive. Jen then mentioned that another big announcement would come out overnight. Those who had seen it said it hinted that the family, under James and Joan's direction, had planned my disappearance. The financial accounts that the family promised me seemed not to exist, raising suspicion that I had been set up to be harmed. She said she would take my father into his office and give him the phone. I could hear the door close as my father said, "Hello." I replied, "Hi, Dad." "John, is that really you?" he asked softly. "How are you, son?" "Yes, it is. I'm doing fine. Jen can tell you more. How is Mom?" "What do you know?" I asked. "We found out about everything a week after you were thought to be gone and the reasons for it. We are a bit older now, but we both are doing well. You'll be happy to see how your daughters have grown." "But how did Jen find you?" my dad wanted to know. "She discovered me by chance. It turns out that her fiancé is the son of a close friend. His family had a barbecue to introduce her and celebrate his graduation. When Stephen brought me to her, she recognized me immediately. We've been in touch ever since," I explained. "I need to stay out of sight until the wedding, so I'm flying in Thursday night with the groom's family. Do you think I can stay safe if I arrange for a helicopter to drop me off at your place?" "I'll ensure the landing area is ready, and we'll give the staff some extra time off. Your mom will be excited to cook some meals for us," he said. "Just let Jen know when I'll arrive," my dad added. After a quick chat, he said he wouldn't tell my mom. He wanted it to be a surprise. Early Monday morning, I heard from the European markets that the shares of my old company had dropped significantly. Just as the market opened, I bought another 1,000,000 shares for $101 each, planning to sell them later. That afternoon, seeing the values continue to drop, I put in an order for 4,000,000 shares at $45 each, hoping to buy low and sell my current shares at $65 each. The media frenzy, led by CNN, was hurting James and Joan Barnes, affecting everything tied to them. Rumors spread, creating a negative image. James Barnes, being a Republican, allowed Anderson Cooper from CNN to speak freely, drawing in a big audience. CNN's viewership was very high, with many reporters outside their doors. Because of the media attention, the FBI announced they would look into my disappearance. On Thursday morning, my old company said that their CEO, Joan Barnes, had accepted a buyout. It was obvious that she had to leave because her connection to the company hurt its image. The stock price began to settle at $35 a share. On Friday afternoon, the stock started to go up, but my brother James Barnes was facing personal problems. He was now under investigation by the Senate for ethics issues. There were many calls from the Senate and the media asking him to resign. In his only public statement, he repeated that he and Joan had only become close after my reported death and said that the conversation between his wife and a former judge was not true. CNN announced they would check the voices in that conversation. They found a recording of James talking about my supposed death, pointing out that no death certificate had been found yet. On Friday, Joan's father announced his sudden retirement from the Senate due to health concerns, saying that his daughter's actions had put him in a tough spot. The stocks of my old company closed on Friday at $59, showing that I had made a good decision buying shares for under $45. At dusk on Thursday, the helicopter landed. As it came down, I saw my parents walking out of their house to welcome me. After the pilot turned off the engine, I got out from under the blades and grabbed my suitcases. Once I stepped away from the blades, I stood tall so my mother could see my face. My dad had to hold her up as she cried and was surprised to see me. It had been over 15 years since I had seen them. Mom kept crying that her baby was home. For the next 2 days, she acted like a caring mother, trying to make me eat more because she thought I looked too thin. The home-cooked meals were delicious. At 5 minutes to 2 on Saturday, Jennifer stepped out of the church, signaling for me to get out of the limo. As I walked up the steps toward her, a reporter from CNN spotted me and asked who I was. I turned and replied without showing any emotion, "I'm the Walking Dead." Then I walked up to stand by the bride. Jennifer looked beautiful. After a few friendly gestures, we walked in together, each of us feeling proud. The cameraman caught it all on video. I saw Joan from the back, and she still looked lovely as she led the bridal party down the aisle. Next came the ring bearers and the flower girls, who scattered rose petals as they walked. Joanne followed, then Judy ahead of us. I told Jennifer to relax, which made Judy look back. I put my finger to my lips, asking her to be quiet. Judy silently told her sister that she found their dad, holding back tears just before they entered the main part of the church. Jennifer nodded, her face bright with joy. I looked up at Stephen and noticed everyone was probably wondering where the best man was. Little did they know he was walking his bride down the aisle. I watched Joan sit next to a man I thought might be James. If it was him, he had really changed. He now had the look of a typical dad with some thin hair. Both Jennifer and I watched Joanne move up the steps to her place and then turn to face us. As tears began to flow, she covered her mouth, trying to hold back her feelings. It was as if she couldn't believe I was really there. Then Judy stood next to her, holding her hand and whispering softly. She also joined her sister in shedding tears. I let go of my daughter and watched her walk up the steps until she stood next to Stephen. "Who gives this lady away?" the father asked. I answered, "Her mother and I do." Then I took my place next to Stephen. It was a lovely ceremony. Many guests said it was the most touching one they had ever seen because my daughter was deeply moved. I noticed that my daughter's mother and my brother looked very pale. They could not meet my gaze. Throughout the ceremony, their eyes stayed downcast. During the evening celebrations, many people asked how I became my son-in-law's best man. Did I introduce them? When we signed the marriage certificate, the priest was surprised when I signed my full name. Almost everyone at the wedding who knew me now realized I was alive. Though no one spoke about it, I sensed that people were using their phones. Later, we found out there were 3 live streams of the event. By the end of the day, the judge and the senator had started making plans. They viewed the situation as a challenge that would affect both families in many ways. Having served in the Marines until just after my triplets were born, I was called back to duty. For over 3 years, I actively participated in missions with my fellow soldiers. I volunteered for every task. They said I was determined and earned a reputation for my commitment. However, faulty equipment led to my injuries, leaving marks on my chest. I was lucky to have survived. After I received my discharge papers, I was no longer a major. I traveled to the Cayman Islands to sort out my finances before deciding what to do next. The judge and my grandmother met me there at the family estate. It was my grandmother's idea to throw a dart on a map if I didn't know what to do. This suggestion led me here. The congratulatory line was funny. Judy and Joanne stood beside me, happily introducing me to everyone. Still, I felt out of place in a tuxedo. Joan and James were the last to walk through. Stephen was polite, but Joan looked completely shocked. "Mom," Jennifer said, "you should know that Dad didn't find me. I found him. I got my hands on all the information about what you both did. Dad only gave me copies to show my sisters the truth. He had no idea what I was planning. What you and James did to all of us is unacceptable. I needed to make things right. I needed to show that he was not the failure you made him seem." Joan was really angry. She probably wanted to shout but stayed quiet and walked away from me. She might have been wondering if her daughter was trying to ruin her life. James stood there for a moment before speaking. "We need to talk. We need to figure this out, John," James said softly, trying to see things from my side. "I'm working on that," I replied without reaching for his hand. James looked surprised, as if he didn't understand. "I will treat you like you treated me, which was not well at all. You made your choices, now you have to deal with them," I said firmly. "I'll watch how this goes." We stood there observing as the couple walked out the door. My 3 daughters noticed the big smile on my face. Steve said, "Oh, something's going on." I just laughed, knowing that as soon as they stepped off the church steps, both of them would be getting news. Joan was receiving divorce papers, and James was facing claims that he interfered in someone else's relationship. Once again, the mass media would be covering their story. Things were about to get much tougher for them. It was time for us to go to the park for photos for their wedding album, so the bridal party climbed into a fancy limo. On the way, while enjoying some sparkling juice, Jennifer shared everything with her 2 sisters, who were holding on to me tightly. They were surprised to learn that Jen had stayed with me for 2 weeks to get to know her future in-laws. My 3 daughters had grown into beautiful young women. I was so proud of them. Jen talked about how we had gone through all the memories I had saved over the years. Jen said she felt like I knew more about her than she remembered about herself. Then she mentioned that she had collections for each sister, showing her that our love had always been strong. The only awkward part of the photo shoot came when all the parents gathered together. We tried to ease the tension by placing Connie and Bill between the others, even though it was hard to get everyone to smile. James and Joan were not in good spirits. Their world seemed to be falling apart. My true identity was now known, and the media was all over it. The noise around us felt overwhelming, and everything about us was being analyzed. The wedding dinner was grand, and it was time for the toasts. As the best man and father of the bride, I approached the moment carefully. I spoke from the heart about how, thanks to his amazing parents, whom I regarded as my best friends, we had grown close. I expressed how I saw him as the son I never had, and shared some funny stories that brought us closer. I admitted I was delighted when he introduced me to his bride. I finished by sharing my hopes for their future happiness and for the wisdom to keep holding on to their dreams. My mother looked proud. When Stephen got up to speak, I nearly lost my composure. He began by saying that it is rare for a groom to call his father-in-law his best friend. He talked about how Jennifer's father had supported him during tough times. The surprise of discovering that John was Jennifer's father was something we all felt deeply. I will always remember my own father's words, telling me I was lucky to be marrying Jennifer. I wanted to thank both of my fathers for helping me become the man I am today. As the bride and groom started their dance, they drew everyone's attention. To this day, I have never seen a more stunning bride. Judy and Joanne kept me on the dance floor, wanting to spend as much time with me as they could. Besides my mother, they were in control of my time. The master of ceremonies came up on stage to announce that it was time for the bride and her father to dance. Before that, with the bride and groom's permission, he introduced General David Bloomberg. The general stepped up and said he was there to give 3 medals to Major Jonathan Charles Barnes III. I chuckled at the nickname Hard Hat Charlie. He had led a platoon on a mission that turned out to be a trap set by the enemy. Our information had been completely wrong. The 2 platoons sent with them also fell into the ambush. After 2 days of tough fighting, with both sides nearly worn out, orders came down to prepare for more action. Hard Hat Charlie had taken off most of his equipment, wearing only his bulletproof vest, helmet, and boots. People around him thought he was taking big risks, but he felt that without taking chances, they were sure to fail. He loaded up with extra ammunition and made a bold move into the fight. His strong will led to a series of clever moves that disrupted the enemy's plans, giving his team a big advantage. Even though he was hurt several times, his courage changed how things turned out, and he earned the respect and thanks of his fellow soldiers. I walked over, and the general pinned medals on him before giving me a salute. My parents and 3 daughters were very proud of him. My daughter Jen guided me to the dance floor for the father-daughter dance. She picked an old song from the 60s, Your Daddy's Home. It was a very touching moment for both of us. When they announced the Motherson dance, I joined my mother on the floor with Stephen and Connie. You could see how much it meant to her. Her joy was very clear. Later, the newlyweds went to change into their travel clothes, and when they came back, Jen found an envelope where she had been sitting. It was addressed to the bride and groom. Inside was a bank draft for $2 million with a note that said, "Follow your dreams." When Jen saw it, she started to cry. My signature was on the draft. I slept in until almost noon on Sunday, having gone to bed around 6 in the morning. After the wedding reception, Judy and Joanne took me to an all-night Chinese restaurant for a late meal. Both girls wanted some time alone with their dad. Before the night ended, we exchanged phone numbers and addresses, and my daughters planned to spend a couple of weeks with me at home. After getting ready, I put on my usual outfit: blue jeans, a white t-shirt, and a long blue jean shirt that I left unbuttoned, along with black socks and simple shoes. I wasn't impressed by brand names or trends. I felt happiest dressed like this, driving my old Ford truck. I was just a simple man living a simple life. I walked down the stairs and found my family gathered in the living room. Mom and Dad were there, along with Bill, Connie, and their 7 kids, as well as my 2 daughters. Connie was sharing with my daughters how I had helped support their family. She explained that for over 10 years, our friends had speculated about my personal life. My dad, though not very religious, was very patient. He never minded when we tried to set him up with someone. We were all surprised when Jen called him Dad, as we had no idea about that relationship. Until that moment, We thought his 2 cats were the most important things in his life. After saying hello, I went to the kitchen to get a cup of coffee. Mom followed me and asked what I wanted to eat. I told her I would love some pancakes, soft eggs, and bacon. She was excited and quickly got out her pans while everyone else in the kitchen moved aside. Dad came in to update me on the news. It seemed the media was very interested in what had been happening. The headline in the New York Times read, "The Walking Dead is alive." CNN was covering my impressive military record and had talked to some people who served with me. Many were surprised I had come through my experiences. My dad laughed when one person mentioned that you should never tell me something couldn't be done because I would always find a way to make it happen. He enjoyed sharing how, as a leader, I pushed my team as hard as I pushed myself. Under his guidance, we all improved as individuals. It turned out Joan was married to 2 brothers, and since there was no record of a divorce, I was likely the longest-known person in that situation. They said that Senator James Barnes had made a big mistake by getting involved with her, and I couldn't help but smile. CNN aired a special in the afternoon discussing such lifestyles. Supporters praised her for the life she had chosen, although even their comments received some criticism. A news team had come to interview people in our small town. Most people had kind things to say, but it was surprising how some stories were stretched for a bit of attention. Dad laughed and pointed out how the media had made it a big deal. He said that by the end, the whole country might see her in a different way without her even speaking. Both Joan and James were dealing with the fallout. I got up to get more coffee just as Mom brought my food and sat opposite me, watching me eat. She was still trying to accept that the youngest in the family had come back home. "Did your brother really say he didn't know what Mom told the judge because he was looking for you?" Joanne asked. "Who can say?" I replied. "We know that for 3 years, she was involved with him without me knowing. It's hard for anyone to remember every word that was said or not said. They had to talk about the risks and what to do if they got caught. Your mother must have felt safe enough to speak her mind that day. The words she used show she was ready for what might come next. They probably thought the family would handle it. The 2 of them took advantage of us all." "Oh no," Joanne said. "You see it more widely, thinking about how it impacted everyone around them. That changes things. So, who took charge, Mother or James?" "James has never really been in charge. Even when he was in the Marines, he played it safe. Your mother and I are both the kind who like to take charge and be bold, so it must have been her," I replied. "Jennifer told me that your gift last night, if managed well, could make sure they have a good future. She didn't tell me how much, but asked me to let you know they're saving it for 5 years to make it last," Joanne said quietly. "Just so you know, the effects of what happened are just starting to show. No one can really know what will happen next. You can't tell how powerful people will react. On Saturday, I told your mother, it's time for us to get divorced. I added, your sister is being careful. When she and you get married, you will get the same amount." "When did she get the papers?" Joanne asked. "As soon as she left the church. James also received them. I'm taking legal action against him for interfering in our relationship. No matter what, they are in a tough spot. I made sure the family trust was frozen because I am still alive. Everything in it will be looked at closely by the lawyers. If they used their own money for anything that happened, I might get a part of that too. I said James would have to pay a few million to settle the case." Joanne stared at me for a moment without saying anything, then said, "The house they live in belongs to the trust." I replied, "I believe everything does. They could be in trouble. It's a big mess. I feel bad for all of us. Lawyers will take a lot of money no matter what. This was meant to protect those who don't need it anymore. Sadly, it's always the innocent who suffer," I said. Judy had been listening to us. I could see she wanted to talk, so when she asked if we could speak alone, I wasn't surprised. With Dad's okay, we went into his office. "Dad," Judy started, "I have a friend whose ex-boyfriend has been harmful before. She has court orders against him, and he has been in jail a few times. He is going to be released next week, and we are both worried he might come after her. She's a nurse. I work with her and we live together. She's on an 8-week break and has some money saved. Mentally and emotionally, if not for her job, she would be struggling. She needs to be in a safe place. I think she should get away." She attended the wedding last night, and for the first time in a while she seemed interested in a man who she described as confident and self-assured. Can I introduce her to you? Sure, but remember we are flying home tomorrow. What are you trying to get me to do? I replied. From what Joanne has said about her time with you, I'd like you to bring her back home with you. It seems like a great chance for her to heal. Bill and Connie are wonderful people, so I know she will fit in well, Judy explained. If you won't do it for her, will you do it for me? She's that important to you? I asked. So who is the man she likes? Yes, she is. I see her almost like an older sister who deserves happiness. The man she is interested in is you, she said with a laugh. I know with your experience you can keep her safe. Are you trying to set me up, dear daughter? I chuckled back. Remember, I'm getting older. You can think about that yourself. She'll be here in an hour, she said with a big smile. Remember, Dad, age doesn't matter. The things a man would do for his daughters. Joan and I got married right after she graduated high school. Her father introduced us when he was serving overseas. I was in my second year of college and she was just 15. For me, it was love at first sight. I joined the Marines with my father's encouragement when I was 16. I took to it easily and did very well. My drill sergeant said I was wise for my age. Being determined helped me advance quickly. The only challenge was balancing my education while living in the barracks. Luckily, schoolwork had always come naturally to me. I earned my degree in 3 years instead of 5. I had been working for 6 years when the twins were born, and I received my first break when they were 2 years old. I saw myself as a young 44-year-old dad. My father always said I was determined and willing to support my business, so I took the leap. Thanks to the rise of computers, my brokerage company grew across North America in just 4 years. I traveled a lot for work and stayed very involved. One day, Dad and I were in the backyard playing basketball when Judy came out with her friend. As they walked towards us, I saw that Judy's friend had long blonde hair. Dad made a comment about her appearance, saying he liked those who were strong. I found out that her name was Barbara Ellen Patterson. She was 33 years old, had never been married, and grew up in a small town in Ohio. Barbara was 5'9", so she was a little shorter than me. She was athletic and played basketball really well. She and my dad quickly teamed up against Judy and me. After a few games, we all relaxed and started chatting like old friends. After a bit, I excused myself and went into my dad's office to make a few phone calls. When I was done, I called Barbara and Judy to come in. I told Barbara that I had a director from the local hospital on the line who wanted to talk to her. While she spoke with him, Judy and I stepped out into the hallway. "What's happening, Dad?" Judy asked. I said, "She might be offered a full-time job in the emergency department starting next month, as long as her references check out, which I think they will, based on what you've said. If she takes the job, she can come with me when I fly home tomorrow and stay with me until she finds a place. You'll need to help her with anything she can't bring along. The pay might not be as high, but living there costs less." Judy hugged me and smiled with gratitude. "Thanks, Dad. I knew you would help. I talked with Joanne about this, and she thought you would agree. You've helped her finally move on. Thank you for giving her this chance." Barbara accepted the job. The change in her was amazing. Her true kindness and caring side began to show. It was a joy for all of us to see. My dad, who is a lawyer, made a power of attorney so Judy could help Barbara with decisions. I suggested to Barbara that she create a new email account and share it with everyone she wanted to stay in touch with. She planned to send her new phone number and updates within a week. Barb, Judy, and Joanne were very excited. They quickly left to help Barbara get ready. The plane took off at 4 and landed at port just before 8. Connie and Barbara became good friends during the flight. Bill and I talked about how much he admired my parents and daughters. He warned me to be careful, as Barb was someone who could settle down. The stock value of my old company was now at $103. Tomorrow, CNN would get a package with my death certificate and the location of my resting place. It was just after 9 when we got to Spuzzum. I drove by the small hospital so Barbara could see where she would work. Then we headed back to my house. The further we drove from the East Coast, the happier Barbara seemed. When I pulled into my driveway, I realized I needed to get another vehicle. Spuzzum's population was now about 3,000. It was turning into a small tourist town. When she saw my house for the first time, she said she hadn't been in a log cabin since she was a child. Before we took her bags inside, we stepped into the front yard so she could enjoy the view of my home overlooking the village below, with the log mill and boats in the docks, and the endless view of the Pacific Ocean. It was a picture-perfect scene, and she was captivated by it. I told her that dusk would arrive between 9:30 and 10. As we walked into the house, I mentioned she was the second guest I had ever hosted. Little did we know then that she would never truly leave. I woke up early on Tuesday before Barbara. I still think about how bright and lovely she looked as she came down the stairs, like someone emerging from the clouds into warm sunlight. Without any makeup, she wore blue jeans and a tank top, and she looked great. "Coffee's ready," I said. "Sugar's on the counter and cream is in the fridge." "And good morning to you, too," she replied. "Any news today in Charlie's world?" "Let's turn on CNN and find out," I said with a grin. I switched on the TV while she poured herself a cup of coffee and checked the fridge and cupboards. She mentioned we needed to go grocery shopping if she was going to cook. I heard her say the house was beautiful but needed some changes to feel more like a home. It reminded me of something my mother used to say. CNN was really busy after getting the death certificate. They found out that the signature was from a doctor with a shady past who was now in prison. A news crew had gone to a grave site in an area often connected to organized crime. When Barbara saw me smiling, she said I knew what was happening. I had to admit that I did. I then said that the judge had set this situation in motion long ago to protect himself. After he passed away, I inherited his property in the Caymans, understanding that he wanted justice. I had the caretaker send this information in. She laughed and told me that she, Judy, and Joe had spent most of Sunday night and Monday morning discussing everything that had happened. Everyone agreed that Joan and James were facing the consequences of their actions. All of you daughters seemed unhappy with what their mother had done. Your daughter made it clear that if I did anything to hurt you, she would hold me responsible. All three of them think very highly of you. I had to promise Judy that I would give her daily updates on how we were doing," Barbara said. "When I told her on Saturday night how I felt about you after the general spoke, she began making plans. I asked her why, and she said my dad is a good man who needs a caring woman in his life. After our coffees, let's head to the port so you can get your Washington State driver's license, apply for your nursing license, and do some major grocery shopping, if that's all right. There's a Golden Corral there so we can have an early lunch," I suggested. "That sounds like a good plan for the day. We can also stop at the hospital so I can visit the Human Resources Department and fill out an application," she replied, handing me her phone. "I need you to save our legal address in the memos for me." After stopping for coffee, she asked if she could drive. I agreed, and she smiled widely. She handled the clutch as if she had been driving for years. When I commented on her skill, she told me she had been driving tractors since she was 9. In the countryside, if you're not driving a standard, you might not be taken seriously. After lunch, we went to the hospital and got that done, then to the state office, where they told her new licenses would arrive within a week. Then we headed to Walmart, and the groceries we bought filled the truck to the top. I hadn't expected to get new copper pots and pans, a complete set of dishes for 12, or shiny new silverware. She explained that my kitchen items showed I didn't really cook, which was true. While she was working at the hospital's HR department, I talked to my insurance provider. Our last stop was the local Jeep dealership, where I picked up a brand new Jeep 4x4. My insurance agent sent over proof of insurance so we could drive it home. She drove behind me all the way. When we got home, she let me unpack the groceries, then asked if she could take over in the kitchen to set things up right. As soon as the dish soap was out, she began cleaning every cabinet before unpacking anything else, as if she was making a new home. I watched in amazement as she organized the kitchen, making it her own. I should have noticed the signs, but I didn't. I went into the living room and turned on the news. It was almost funny if it hadn't been so sad. They had found my gravesite and were asking if I was alive who was buried there. It would take a lot to find that out. I heard Barbara's phone ring and listened in, gathering it was Judy checking in. I yelled to tell Judy I was still here. Barb passed on the message, then shouted back that her daughter thought I could be a real jerk. I chuckled, thinking I was too old for that to matter. It was almost 10 when she finished her chores. To celebrate, I poured us both a big glass of homemade blackberry wine and enjoyed the twinkling lights of the town below until we retired to our separate rooms. I woke up to the smell of bacon cooking. When I came downstairs, the coffee was ready. Barbara was wearing a long, cozy house coat with a matching nightgown. I complimented her on it and asked how long it took to make. She said 2 months, curious how I knew. I replied that you can't find that kind of quality in stores. She smiled and said she appreciated a man who noticed the little things. Breakfast was almost ready. I had 6 pancakes, 3 soft eggs, and 4 slices of bacon with warm maple syrup. I asked how she knew it was my favorite. She laughed and said my mother had told her, but added that I could put the eggs on my pancakes myself. Curious, I asked what else my mother had shared. She smiled and said that was for her to know and for me to find out. I thought that I could really enjoy this. I mentioned I would stop by the store to grab the plates after taking care of the Jeep taxes. She said that was okay because she had found a tape measure in my toolbox and was measuring for curtains. Before I left, she gave me a friendly kiss on the cheek and reminded me that dinner would always be at 6 when she was off work. I realized she was trying to make a real home, not just a place to sleep. I came back at noon and put the plates in the Jeep before going inside. Barbara told me the FBI was digging up my gravesite that afternoon. We both wondered what they might find. It turned out that my death certificate was issued right before I re-enlisted. CNN was covering it live. I got a text from the lawyers asking me to call. It turned out that Joan wanted a quick divorce and for the trust to be handled separately. She wouldn't fight over the reason for the divorce, thinking that if they pursued that, the waiting time would be longer since she was already remarried. I told them to go ahead. Barb said I was making a smart choice. She mentioned that we needed to discuss materials and prices for the blinds. I asked why, and she explained that this town was growing and new homes might soon give others a view into our house. Plus, finishing the house would make it more valuable. We spent the next 4 hours talking about each room and ordering what we needed online. After spending quite a bit of money, I asked her if she expected me to hang the items when they arrived. She said yes, that it was usually a man's job, but she would help. She thought it was good to check with Judy, and we were glad she did. Judy had some important information about what they discovered in the coffin. Inside, wrapped carefully, was a sealed envelope. When it was opened, it had a note that said, "Next time, James and Joan, when you try to frame someone, make sure the person you hire is skilled." It was signed by me. I couldn't help but laugh when I heard that. After Barb got off the call, she asked for more details. I explained that before I left to see the judge, I had signed a bunch of blank pages, thinking they were for a letter. What they found must have been one of those. Just as Barb was about to start dinner, I got a call saying all my friends and their spouses were coming to welcome her to the neighborhood. I told Barb not to cook anything, because we were about to have a full house. They wanted to greet Barb and welcome her into our community. It seemed that Connie had told everyone I had brought a lovely lady back with me, and that my daughters had approved of her. All the women were eager to meet the person who had caught my eye. They joked all night that they had to see it to believe it since I had finally found someone special. Within 10 minutes, the group arrived. I proudly introduced Barb to everyone. We were having a country-style potluck dinner with fried chicken, baked beans, nachos with cheese, potato chips, coleslaw salad, fresh buns, 2 cases of beer, and pecan pie. The ladies appreciated Barb's choice of dishes. After introductions, she joined in the conversation, discussing the curtains, blinds, and rods she had ordered and mentioning they would arrive on Friday. We planned to get together on Saturday afternoon to set everything up, but she insisted on handling the meal for everyone. Early Thursday morning, we went to the Ace Superstore in Port. Barb wanted to buy a big barbecue, an oil fryer, and a smoker with tanks. We ended up getting a patio set that could seat 8 people, plus 8 extra chairs, which were delivered the next day. I also bought some pre-cut wood to build a couple of tables. On Friday morning, I started building an outdoor cedar table for her. When folded, it could lean against the outside back wall. When it was pulled out for use, it would be the main place for serving food. I stained it to match our log home and sealed it to protect it. She really liked it. Thankfully, Ace Hardware had pre-assembled it, which saved us a lot of time. On Saturday around noon, they brought ladders, and soon the 5 of us set up rods in all the rooms. We let the ladies hang the curtains. I had to admit, in front of everyone, that Barb had a great eye for design. That made her smile. What we had done really improved the look of the house, and I told her so. I chuckled when I saw Barb blush. Bill pointed out that I would need a garage and storage for the patio items before winter. I agreed, but said I wanted a proper walkway and a mudroom for coats and boots, all made of logs. Barb also mentioned needing space for 2 freezers. I sighed, and Connie noticed, then asked if we were already thinking about having more kids. I felt my face warm up, and everyone laughed. Connie joked about Charlie being taken for granted and not even knowing it, which made us all smile. Barb had prepared a lot of smoked ribs, a big potato salad, and a fresh cabbage relish, along with a regular salad. Everyone loved the cabbage recipe, and all the ladies wanted to know how she made it. To thank her for her hard work, I made her breakfast on Sunday, and then we took a nice trip along the coast with friends. Seeing her happy made me think about taking her to Seattle to watch whales and visit their market. When Judy called Barb, she shared her true feelings with her privately. I felt the same way, but I didn't want to act on it. I thought I was too set in my habits. It had been an interesting week. We spent 3 evenings planning out our ideas. My 4 close friends liked to tease me about having feelings for her. No matter how much I denied it, they seemed to know better. A rock removal company was set to arrive next week to help clear space for our plans. By the time they finished, we would have permission to build a 4-bay garage, a storage area in the back with an extra apartment above it, and a 16-foot path leading to a big mudroom for Barb. James and Joan had been called for a meeting, and there were whispers that it wasn't going well. Polls showed his chances of re-election were slipping. 2 people were being looked at for a troubling incident involving me, but it was hard for the investigators due to a lack of solid proof. On Friday, I got an interesting call from the president of the company I started. He asked if I would consider becoming the new CEO because I owned a lot of shares. I asked for a week to think about it, and he agreed. Somehow, news of this got out, and share prices jumped to $139. Then, late Saturday, a loud thunderstorm with lightning rolled in. I didn't know it at the time, but it would change our relationship forever. It hit right in the middle of the night. I was lying in bed, listening to the heavy rain hit my roof when my bedroom door opened. A big flash of lightning lit up the room. Barb walked in, wearing a light nightgown. It was a striking sight, and her figure stood out in the glowing light. I pretended to be asleep as she pulled back the sheets and climbed in beside me, shivering a bit from fear. When the next thunder shook the room, she snuggled up close to me. I could smell fresh soap on her skin, a soft scent that filled the air. The warmth of her presence made me feel nervous. As she rested her head on my shoulder, many feelings rushed through me. We shared a gentle moment when she leaned in to kiss my cheek, but our lips brushed together. A soft kiss followed, filled with feelings we had both kept inside. Our hands moved slowly, appreciating the bond we were beginning to build. We took our time, letting the moment unfold naturally. As our feelings grew stronger, we felt a deep connection forming. After that special night, we opened up about our feelings and confessed our love for each other. Eventually, hunger reminded us it was time to get up. I put on my pajama bottoms and went downstairs to make some coffee. While it was brewing, I called my daughter, Judy. "Dad," Judy said with surprise, "it's great to hear from you." "Thanks. I need to ask you something. What did Barb say to you at Jen's wedding?" I asked. "She said that when she saw you there, it was love at first sight. The more she learned about you that night, the more her feelings grew. She kept watching you all evening. Since you came back home, she has been so happy. Whatever you decide to do, don't hurt her," Judy said. I laughed lightly and replied, "Just so you know, she slept in my bed last night." This morning, we both admitted that we were in love. Judy got a bit emotional, so I told her I would give her some space and we'd talk later. The coffee was almost ready, so I cleaned the coffee pot and warmed up our cups. Just as I was finishing, the doorbell rang. It was FedEx, delivering an important letter from my lawyer. It was my divorce certificate. The court had made an exception, and now I was a free man. Barbara came downstairs, her face full of joy. Her phone rang, and she answered with a big smile. She started laughing shortly after and hung up a moment later. "That was Judy," she said. "She had a question for me." "Oh, what was it?" I asked curiously. "She wanted to know if it was okay for her to start calling me Mom," she said with a grin. "You had to tell her, didn't you?" I chuckled. Barbara suggested that I should be the one to reach out to Judy first, since I might not do it on my own. She was right. I always felt like I was too old to fall in love again. I poured our morning coffee and walked to the kitchen table after adding my creamer. Barbara liked her coffee black, so she grabbed her cup and came over, but paused when she saw the letter from my lawyer. She picked it up and read it. When she saw the divorce certificate inside, her eyes filled with tears of joy. I got up and hugged her tightly. "Is it time for you to meet my parents?" she asked. When I said yes, she called her mother to check if they still had family gatherings on the farm during Labor Day weekend. When her mom confirmed, she told her she would come home for it. Her mother was delighted. Instead of meeting on Monday, they would have the gathering on Saturday since others had plans for the holiday. Judy and Joanne both left before summer ended. One day we looked through their binders. Barb, her daughters, and I were surprised by how much I knew about my daughter's life. We landed at Cuyahoga County Airport, where a rental car was waiting for us after we arrived on a small private jet. After picking up our bags, we checked in at a Holiday Inn. It was a lovely day in September. Our plane was set to pick us up the following Tuesday. Barb hadn't been home in 2 years and had mentioned that her father and 2 brothers had served in the military. Since I was the first man that Barb brought home as an adult, I figured her family would want to see if I was good enough for their only daughter. The next morning, Barb drove us to the farm. We got there early and were the 3rd car in the yard. Her mother hurried out onto the porch to greet us before we even turned off the car. She was surprised that her daughter was with a man. Hearing the noise, her father came out to see what was happening. I was taken aback, too. Her father was Bullfrog Patterson, my former drill sergeant. The first thing he said surprised me. I had always thought he was a tough teacher who pushed us hard. "Barb, what are you doing with this guy? He cost me over $1,000, he said with a laugh and shook my hand. I was supposed to make him quit, but he ended up being one of the best Marines I've ever trained. When he needs to, he can be very tough. I lost a lot of bets because I never thought he would last. He showed me that I was wrong." "Bullfrog," I said, and Barb and her mom looked at me in surprise. "I won't hold back. I came to have an important talk with Barbara's father because I want to ask for his daughter's hand." I had no idea that he was you. "Are you serious?" Mrs. Patterson asked. "Yes, ma'am," I replied, noticing Bull had a smile on his face. "You've got it, John," he said. "My only daughter couldn't come home with a better man." With that, I got down on one knee and took the ring box from my pocket. In front of her parents, I asked her to marry me. Barb, completely surprised, said yes. I stood up and slipped the ring onto her finger, hoping it would fit. It did. After a lot of congratulations from her mom and dad, Bull said he would get the keys to the truck for a quick outing. It would give us a chance to talk. Barb's mom was emotional for 2 reasons. Her daughter had come home with a man her father liked, and she had just gotten engaged. Bull and I first stopped at the local Legion for a couple of drinks. He asked if I had finalized my divorce, and I said yes. I shared how I met his daughter and how our relationship grew. He knew I came from money, so he didn't ask more about it. Of course, he introduced me to everyone and proudly told them I was his future son-in-law. Someone asked how he got the nickname Bullfrog. I explained, he was our drill sergeant during training, and it was his job to push us hard. Since I joined at 16 with my parents' permission, he thought I didn't really want to be there. He was tough on me. Every little mistake meant more work for me. It seemed like he wanted to make me quit. The other recruits noticed and wondered why. One night, one of the guys said, "Man, you're really putting up with a lot from him. What do you think of him?" I replied, "He reminds me of a bullfrog sitting on a log waiting for bugs. In his eyes, I'm the bug." The guys laughed and started calling him Bullfrog, and the name stuck. We spent quite a while picking up the drinks. I had a feeling that if he got his way, I would be a bit tipsy by the end of the day. When we returned, the yard was full of cars. We carried some drinks into the house, then parked his truck for easy access. Barb and her mom greeted us with smiles. Barb took my hand. I heard someone in the crowd call out, "Is that you, Hard Hat Charlie?" I looked up and said, "Measly Mike, great to see you." Right away, we shared a friendly hug, knowing we were still good friends. Bull watched us and asked, "Do you two know each other?" "He's the best technician I ever worked with," I replied with a smile. "I trained with Bullfrog. I didn't know he was Barbara's dad." Bull said, "John, Why did he call you Hard Hat Charlie? When I re-enlisted, I started using my middle name and reached the rank of major before leaving the service, I explained. That name came from my team during my last mission. So, you're the one who helped my son, Bull said. Mike and I nodded. Barb then whistled to get everyone's attention. She introduced me as her partner and mentioned that her mom wanted to say something before the party continued. She leaned in and whispered that she was keeping the keys, knowing her dad and brother might think I was too tipsy to drive. Barb's mom, Gloria, spoke up. I want to officially announce the engagement of my daughter Barbara to retired Major Jonathan Charles Barnes. Barbara came home because Charles wanted our approval before asking for her hand. My husband trained him and said he was one of the best. It took just moments for him to give his blessing. As soon as he had it, he proposed right in front of us. Everyone seemed a bit surprised, but Mike said, "You're going to be my brother-in-law," repeating it as if he needed to believe it. For the next hour, Barb introduced me to her extended family. She shared that it had been a long time since she had seen her family so proud. They joined our celebration, and I ended up feeling a bit tipsy. I can't remember how we got back to the hotel. I had to ask my future wife if I had acted foolishly. She just smiled and said I had outlasted the others. That didn't help my headache the next morning. Barb joked that I deserved it. I promised myself it would be the last time I drank too much. At breakfast, Barb spontaneously took a picture of her ring and texted it to Judy, along with a message. She wrote, "You can call me Mom if you agree to be my maid of honor." Less than 10 minutes later, we were on a conference call with my 3 excited daughters. They were all thrilled. We found out that James and Joan were in trouble with the FBI and facing several charges. Their legal bills were rising fast. Their jobs were also heavily affected. James even had DNA tests done for his 3 sons to confirm they were his. It seemed the stress of everything had made him doubt himself. Their marriage looked very strained. My daughters thought it might not last much longer. The money they depended on had been traced back to James, who was given authority to manage those finances after my sudden disappearance through the trust set up by Joan. This showed that their plans had been in place long before I found out what was happening. What we didn't realize was that James believed all his troubles were my fault. He kept claiming he had been set up. Most people thought he had lost all credibility. My trust, which still was not settled, was now worth millions, and the lawyers would be arguing over it for a long time. I informed my daughters that a trustee had been assigned by the court to manage it until everything was settled. The only issue we had was that my daughters wanted us to fly to New York for a family celebration. We planned to go as soon as Barb's work schedule allowed. All the girls were excited to pick a date. I talked with the board, and with my future wife's agreement, I accepted the role of CEO. We would have meetings on the 2nd and 4th Friday of each month with calls 3 times a week. I wanted to spend more time with Barb. She was everything to me. Barb started her first day at the hospital and quickly got settled in. Working in the emergency room in a small town gave her some free time, so she began taking classes to help her career. She worked 4 12-hour days one week and 3 the next, from 6 in the morning until 6 in the evening. I made sure to prepare meals for her when she got home. Our friends found it funny how much I was taking on household tasks. I wondered if they ever thought about single life. After her first 3 weeks, we flew out on Thursday night to New York. I had a press conference the next morning to announce my new role. After that event, I learned that the court decided the changes made to my trust after the news of my supposed death were not valid. The court said I had to pay James and Joan 19% of its current value. If they wanted any of the personal items, they would have to buy them back at market value if I chose to sell. This was a big setback for them. I told my lawyers to work on the details of the division, as long as they kept their family home. After the conference, Barb and I went to my parents' house, where we found out my 3 daughters and Stephen would be joining us on Saturday. Mom and Dad wanted to welcome Barb to the family in their own way. Even with staff, Mom liked to cook the meals. Barb and I had one big question to answer: where would we get married, and how could we make our friends and family happy? By the end of the day, with my parents' support, we decided to get married in Ohio. We planned to have a second celebration here with family and friends, and a small gathering with our friends back home afterward. I chose Barb's brother, Measly Mike, to be my best man. Judy would be Barb's maid of honor, and Jen and Joe would join the wedding party along with Stephen and her other brother. We picked the last Saturday in December because Barb had always dreamed of being a December bride. We had just finished a lovely family dinner made by my mom when there was a knock at the front door. When my dad answered it, we were surprised to see my former wife wanting to talk to me. My instincts told me to stay away, and so did my parents. Barb insisted that I needed to forgive her to move on from the past. Connie told me about her affair and how my advice affected them both. It was time for me to take my own advice. I stepped into Dad's office for a moment before calling Joan in. "Joan," I said, "before we start, I want you to remember the last words I heard from you years ago. I sat in the judge's office while he spoke to you. Pay attention to your tone and what you said back then. Just so you know, I just emailed a statement to CNN confirming that I was there when the judge recorded it and listened to your conversation." Joan's face went pale as she realized I knew the whole story. The media had never shared the full conversation. I excused myself to grab a drink, giving her time to reflect on her own words from that day. I came back and waited outside until her conversation with the judge was finished before returning to Dad's office. Think about that conversation from where I was sitting, hearing you say I was no longer part of my daughter's lives. Consider the feelings of betrayal, the hurt, and the sadness. Think about what we all had to face because of your choices. I've asked many times what James did during the 3 years he was with us besides letting me down. What did you tell our daughter about her dad's death being sad, but also thanking him for bringing Uncle James closer to you? Did you ever say anything true in our relationship? Jennifer, Judy, and Joanne have all heard the same thing. They know the date it was recorded, and it was before everyone thought I was gone. Now they're questioning everything James and you said to them. Listening to that tape has ruined any trust they had in both of you. I told her this clearly. Time has shown that I was seen as just a part of your plans. When Jennifer found me, I knew I couldn't hide anymore. I needed to take back my name, my family, and my life. The family's secrets had to end, I said firmly. Joan looked surprised. My words had really affected her. Everything I said seemed to hit home. Tears rolled down her face, and I wondered if they were from regret or just the heaviness of the moment. I got up from behind my dad's desk and handed her a box of tissues. I picked up my drink and left, saying I would give her time to think. Barb and my parents were in the living room when I walked in. My mom was showing Barb all the pictures she had saved over the years. "By the look on your face, I can tell things didn't go well," my dad said. She heard her own words to the judge and how he replied. Before she could say anything, I asked her to think about how I must have felt listening to that conversation over the speakerphone. I asked her a few questions, and she became very upset, so I decided to give her some space to gather her thoughts before we talked again. I also told her that her daughters heard everything, and that the conversation happened just days before everyone thought I was gone. I pointed out that her own words had broken the trust her daughters had in both of them. I stepped away because I didn't want to see her cry. She can't deny her past or the mistakes she made. "Are you okay?" Barb asked with real concern. "I'm just stating the facts," I replied. "It has given me a calmness I haven't felt in a long time. The anger I once had is gone. I can now accept whatever happens next." "It seems Barb was right," said Mom. After I filled my drink, I went back to the office and took a seat. I lit a cigarette and waited for her to start talking. "We saw you as the chance we had been waiting for. Finally, we could live our lives openly. When the judge called, James was in the kitchen with me. We both noticed he was getting involved in something that wasn't his business. His feelings influenced my thoughts and words, and I didn't think carefully about what I said," Joan said quietly. "You know the judge was right. Your father had received the video I took before he was called. He asked us to wait until he got there. Within an hour, he was on his way. When he heard the conversation, he was shocked. They both felt, like I did, that you had set everyone up. If this went public, their careers would be ruined and their reputations broken. When Jennifer found out, she insisted we get our DNA tested to confirm our thoughts. Thankfully, she is my biological daughter. Both would have hurt you if it had been allowed," I replied. "Your words showed that everything you two were doing was planned. Now you see why your father has kept his distance from you. He told everyone what needed to happen and why. The question I have is, what gave you the right to take me out of our children's lives? I have to ask because our daughters want to know, I said as I stood up and noticed her tears starting to flow again. Then I walked out. What do you think so far? Barb asked. She is just trying to make excuses for what she did, nothing more. She hasn't shown any regret and hasn't said sorry. I feel like the only thing she's sorry about is that she got caught, I replied. Looking at the three of them told me everything. They seemed just as shocked as I was. We were all trying to understand why she had come. We might both end up in trouble, Joan said when I returned to the room. The FBI has charges against us for lying to them, tax issues, pretending someone died, stealing, and a few others, all connected to your trust. Our lawyers are trying to reach a deal before they officially charge us. James and I think if you spoke up, they might go easy on us. Sadly, they haven't asked me anything. Why would they? I was overseas serving our country while others were doing their own thing, I said with a smile. I really can't help you, can I? You made your choices. Now you have to deal with them. This is James and your problem. I often wonder if you ever really loved me. Now I see you didn't. You will learn that there are consequences for your actions that money won't fix. You haven't changed. I had hoped you would say sorry for what you did, but you didn't. You came here to try to save yourself. It has always been about you, so please let me show you out. I guess you both will go to jail and say it's not your fault. I couldn't stop laughing as she left the house. Mom and Dad were acting like, well, parents. Barb and I had to sleep in separate beds. It made me realize how close Barb and I had become. There's nothing like having someone next to you at night to soothe a worried heart. It was a restless night. I realized how much we had come together as a couple. Around 2 in the morning, Barb quietly walked into my room. When she said she couldn't sleep without me, it made me smile. I told her that moments like this remind us how young we feel. As she snuggled up next to me, I wrapped my arms around her. When she noticed tears in my eyes, she asked what was wrong. I told her I finally understood the joy of having a loving partner. It was a memory we both would cherish forever. I guess my words made an impact because Barb started to cry. I comforted her with gentle care. I need to know right now, she said. How do you feel about us having kids? I took a moment to think before answering. Kids have a special way of keeping us feeling young at heart. If you're okay with me being in my 60s when the last one leaves home, then I have no problem with having more than one. I guess it's time we started working on that, she said, and we did. When I went downstairs, Dad was already up. The aroma of fresh coffee filled the air. It reminded me of my childhood. Brewing coffee was always his routine on days off. I couldn't deny that his coffee was richer and had more flavor than what we usually had today. Good morning, Dad greeted me as I entered to grab a cup and sit with him at the table. I want to thank both of you for interrupting my sleep. What do you mean? I asked. Your mom had to wake me up when Barb came to ask what I thought we should do, he said with a laugh. I told her you both knew what you were doing. I'm going to have fun teasing her about it for weeks. Tell Mom that Barb and I don't sleep well apart, I replied, and let her know we're planning to give her a couple more grandkids in the next few years. Barb wants her family close because she is getting older. Dad said, I guess we will be looking for a home in Spuzzum. With me taking it easier at work, your mom will want to spend a lot of time being a grandmother again. Jennifer and Steve arrived first. Barb and I hadn't seen them since their wedding, so it was nice to catch up. They were happy to be part of our bridal party. They talked about their honeymoon. Barb shared how things went when I met her parents, saying I was a bit too cheerful. She playfully showed a video of her father, brother, and me singing a funny song, which made everyone laugh, even my dad. Steve found it funny that Barb's dad had been my drill sergeant and her brother was one of my training buddies. An hour later, Judy and Joanne arrived. Judy was thrilled when Barb asked her to be our maid of honor. She had not thought it would really happen. They spent a long time sharing stories and gossiping about their old workplace and friends. Mom was excited to talk about our plans to have children. Then Jennifer had to tell her sisters about my well-known video, which led to some light teasing. Steve asked Barb to send him a copy to share with his dad. Barb mentioned that we need to let everyone know we are engaged. With the addition to our house and her new job, we have been so busy. We hadn't seen them since the start of the month, but the work should be done by the end of it. She explained that we are building a garage with a big storage area behind it and a 3-bedroom apartment above. There will be an enclosed walkway connecting the mudroom to the house. It took a week to level the ground before construction could begin. At the same time, we also expanded our backyard and made the patio bigger. We hope to have it stained and sealed to match the house if the weather is good. The extra dirt and rocks we took away were used to make the front area bigger and flatter. That was when I told my daughter that I had spoken to their mother the night before. They all fell silent. Using Dad's internet and Barb's laptop, I played the recording of our conversation through Dad's TV. I could see them listening closely to the judges and Joan, and then to my talk with her. Afterward, it was clear that my daughters were shocked. I can't believe it. She showed no explanation, no regret. Yet she came expecting you to help because she thought you owed her, Joanne said. You asked her questions, and she just ignored them. It's sad that she is so focused on herself that she can't see how her actions have affected others, Dad, she added. Has she always been like this? I paused for a moment and then replied, Before you 3 were born, I would say no. I remember my first time home after your birth. Even though I was only home for 3 months, I noticed something had changed in her. At first, I thought it was because she was tired and stressed from caring for you all. That was when I decided to hire a full-time nanny and leave the army so I could help her. By the time I got out, you were nearly 3, and we were like strangers. But soon she started to open up to me. Now I see that it was all a mask for her. During that year, James moved in and found a job. He was starting his new life while I worked with Dad to build my own company. I think the relationship I had with her back then was just a cover she used while she planned her future with him. That's why I asked her if she had ever been honest with me, I admitted. It seems like she went through a tough emotional time after we were born, and she never got the help she needed, Judy said. Barb and I have seen this kind of thing often in our work. One clear sign of a struggle is a change in personality, which often happens as a way for the mind to cope. This might explain her behavior, but it does not excuse it. Unfortunately, after everything that has happened, this is the breaking point. My mother and I are finished. Both of her sisters agreed. I thought this was just another way for her to blame me. I had no idea how true that would become. To lift the mood, Barb suggested we help her pick out the colors for their dresses. I jumped in and said I would wear black. When they asked why I usually wore black, I explained that it is often linked to sadness and loss. Jennifer wanted to know what I was sad about. I answered that I felt like my freedom was in danger, and she reacted with a dramatic groan. My dad saw me walking outside with a drink, trying to sort through my thoughts, and decided to come out, sensing I was burdened. Son, I know this is tough. Don't spend too much time worrying about the past. You did your best with the knowledge you had at that moment. There's no point in looking back. Life is short. Remember your blessings. 3 wonderful daughters who make their grandfathers proud. They reflect your values. You have a future partner who is kind. My parents shared their estate fairly among us, but chose to leave James out. You served your country and helped many. You have always chosen the right path, even during tough times. Today you are strong and free to live your life as you choose, he said. Your daughters made a hard choice to focus on their well-being, just like you, my dad went on wisely. This shows that your decisions were not wrong. Your dedication brought them home. They understand that even with challenges, you acted in our best interest. That alone says a lot. My dad had a special way of making me proud with his wise words, helping me think clearly. Just imagine, you could have grandchildren older than their aunts and uncles, he joked. Not everyone gets a second chance to do things better. Focus on the future and leave the past behind. Smiling, we joined the family gathering, which was busy with wedding plans. Barb, my mom, and my 3 daughters were talking about flowers and deciding whether to have a church service or a simple ceremony, and if it should have a holiday theme. I shook my head at the confusion while Dad and I played cribbage for a penny a point, double for a big win. In the end, I lost $4.65. Let them handle it, he said. Just show up at the wedding. It's the easiest way to avoid trouble. He was right. On Sunday, before we left, my mom had Barb call her mother to share the news about the wedding place. She was very happy. Barb also mentioned that her future mother-in-law wanted to help with the plans. When my mom told her not to worry about costs, saying it was her gift to us, Dad rolled his eyes. The two mothers argued about the details, but my mom won. Once she decided something, it was hard to change her mind. Her close friends fondly called her Sarge since she was a teenager. They did agree that everything had to be approved by Barb. This made me think that I was marrying my mom because Barb was just like her. As the plans were coming together, I started to wonder if Joan and I had really been in love. On our flight home, Barb told me her parents were coming to visit. Mom wanted to talk about places, the menu, the band to hire, and anything else that could make planning more complicated. They were excited to see how we lived our daily lives. Bull had arranged a truck for them to explore the island. He had always wanted to do this, and now they finally had the chance. With just over 2 months until the wedding, time was running short. When we returned home, we learned that the dive shop had burned down. On Tuesday morning, I met with the owner. He had no insurance and did not plan to rebuild. I offered him a fair price for the property, and we worked out a deal that needed approval from the local council. Within 3 days, the mayor approved it. By the end of the week, construction started on the site. The builders were excited. They were creating a restaurant and bar, taking up a city block and using logs from the mill. With a concrete floor and the two businesses sharing a wall, everyone was pleased. The plans were approved by the village, and they promised to finish the outside in 2 weeks. The former staff agreed to work in the bar and were happy with its new name, Bullfrogs. We quickly leased the restaurant space through a nearby real estate agent before construction was done. I hired a firm from Seattle to design the bar and set it up, paying extra for a fast job. I asked Barb to have her mother send us a favorite picture of Bull in uniform. I used that image to have a glass company create the main entrance doors, featuring his full picture on each door, along with the name of the bar displayed prominently. Barb arranged the furniture for our new apartment. Throughout the month, she and our moms took care of all the wedding details. The day before her parents arrived, everything was ready. That Thursday night, the new bar had its grand opening. It was more popular than the old one had ever been. Everyone loved our food menu, which made Barb very happy since she had created the items and given them special names. We had 31 days until the wedding. Barb's parents were arriving around 5 that Friday night, so I was surprised when Barb asked me that morning to take her to the regional airport in Port. She wanted us to drive the Jeep and said we needed to be there by 2. I asked her why, and she said it was a surprise. We got to the airport at 10 to 2 and watched as a small 6-seater jet landed. I learned something new that day. I didn't know my dad flew his own plane. He and Barb looked great. After we got my parents settled and shared some drinks, Barb's parents arrived. Once they were settled, it was too late to start dinner, so we took them to our new bar. I drove Barb's parents in my old truck, and my future mother-in-law said my truck reminded her of the one her husband had when they were first dating. Barb followed us in the Jeep, which she had come to love. When we reached the bar, Bull was surprised. Seeing his picture on the doors impressed him. My dad leaned in and quietly said, "Well done." I told Bull, "When you walk in, I want you to shout your order like you did when you wanted us all in line." He agreed to humor me and did. When we entered the bar, Bull shouted his order loud enough for everyone to hear, like we were still in training. 16 former Marines quickly stood in line and saluted him again. He had trained each of them. He walked down the line, greeting them by name. Gloria looked at me with pride and said, "You know you will have to take him home." I nodded and laughed. Barb showed her love for me and then told her mother that I had named our new bar after her dad. Charlie didn't want to tell me because he had a surprise in mind. Bull was surprised when he saw the plaque on the wall above the bar. It said, "Named after the toughest drill sergeant of them all, Bullfrog Patterson." That night, we all tried Barb's menu and agreed that the food was surprisingly good for a bar. Dad and I had to help Bull upstairs to his bed. His former recruits had certainly made this night special for him. We would talk for weeks about how much nicer he was when he wasn't in charge. Bull often said it was the second time in his life he felt amazed. The first time was when I asked for his daughter's hand, Gloria, my parents, and we were relaxing in the living room thinking about the day when she shared some news. Bull was being asked to retire after 40 years, and he was facing a big change in his life. Mike was planning to take over the family farm at the end of the year, and they were thinking of moving into town. Bull was struggling with this. I looked into Barb's eyes and saw her worry. "You know, Barb," I said, "if he lived here, he would be great to manage the bar." Gloria replied, "But where would we stay? There isn't much open." "Mom," Barb said with a big smile, "we have the in-law suite. If Dad agrees, it's yours, but I should warn you, the storms here can be really loud." Her mom looked at her and asked, "How do you handle them?" "Ever since I was little, I would come to your bed for comfort during storms," Barb said. A smile appeared on Barb's face as she glanced at me knowingly. "Charlie has helped me enjoy storms. They are one of my favorite things," she said with a bright smile. My parents understood the inside joke and both started to laugh. Over the next few days, while Gloria and Bull explored the island, my parents, John and Silva, looked for a new place to live. We hadn't yet told Bull our plans. Gloria wanted to understand what he thought about the area before we made any official offers. The furniture finally arrived, and Barb and I were busy unpacking and arranging everything when she noticed an official-looking car coming down the driveway. We decided to go outside to greet it. It was the FBI, and they wanted to talk to me. They asked to speak with me alone, but I told them that since I had nothing to hide from my future wife, I would prefer to have her there with me. We found ourselves sitting at the kitchen table sharing a cup of coffee. The agent introduced himself as Peter McCormick and brought some worrying news. Last week, my brother James was arrested on serious charges, including fraud and assault, and he had been denied bail. Joan had filed for divorce and faced her own charges, but she had been granted bail because of their children. An informant said that James had tried to get information about hiring someone to cause harm, and they were worried about my safety. They asked for my schedule and plans for the next 2 months, as they needed to investigate. I noticed Barb's expression change. They took the situation seriously because my trust had a rule stating that if I got divorced and passed away within 6 months, it would be managed by my former spouse. Lawyers said that until the trust was approved by the court, I could not make any changes to it. Agents were dispatched to investigate further. It was clear I needed to keep my routine the same. Barb and I realized how serious this was. After they left, we talked about how to let my parents know and what steps we could take to ensure our safety. It was the last Saturday the 6 of us would be together until the wedding. My parents had found a 5-acre lot outside of town and had finalized the deal. Their real estate agent had helped them find a local builder who agreed to make a log cabin for them, a bit bigger than ours, sitting on a small foundation. They had ordered a special kit online, and it was set to arrive at the building site in 3 weeks. Bud was not eager to go back home. He liked the slower, relaxed life in our small town. Barb, her parents, and I were together in the living room while my parents were out. I asked Bud, "How much will you take from the farm when you move to town?" He replied, "We haven't really thought about it much. To be honest, I'm not too excited about having neighbors so close. Why do you ask?" "Dad," Barb said, "Charlie and I were thinking if you would consider moving here to manage the bar for us. You both could live in the in-law suite for no rent. The starting pay would be $60,000 a year." He was very surprised, but promised he would think about it. We told him to take his time and let us know when he made a decision. Later on, Gloria told her daughter she felt confident it would work out because Bull was proud of that bar. He just needed to come to terms with something he already felt in his heart. They talked about what Gloria wanted to bring with her while they prepared a big dinner in the kitchen. We all watched them drive away towards Ohio. Once we went back inside, I told my parents we needed to discuss something important. My mother was very upset when I shared the news about the FBI visit. She felt guilty, thinking she hadn't raised James properly. I shared with her the advice the judge had given me and reminded her that James had lived a good life until getting involved with my ex-wife. "Remember, Mom, you taught us to be around people who uplift us, not bring us down. It's the strong morals and values you taught us that have kept me steady. Those lessons made me who I am today. James just discarded his." "Well, Mom and Dad," Barb said, "I have some good news that might make you smile, but you have to promise to keep it a secret." I looked at Barb, curious about what she had to share. My parents agreed to keep it just between us. "My doctor says that by the time we get married, I will only have 32 weeks to go," Barb said happily. "If it's a girl, Her name will be Gloria Elizabeth, and if it's a boy, it'll be Jonathan Charles Barnes IV. I thought my mother would be so excited she might jump for joy. I nearly lost my balance. So here we were, the day before my wedding. Bullfrog, Measly Mike, my dad, and all the other guys in my bridal party were at the Legion enjoying a few drinks after our rehearsal. The girls were somewhere else, throwing Barb a shower. Bull was saying goodbye to friends as he got ready to move to Washington State to run a bar named after him. James's plans had taken a turn for the worse. The person involved had been caught and received a long sentence. Joan made a deal for a shorter sentence in exchange for helping with the case against her husband. His trial was set to begin next year. The property was settled, and Joan put the house she lived in with her 3 sons up for sale and started the process for a divorce. The last 2 of our 4 children would start kindergarten next month. Jonathan was first, followed by Gloria 10 months later, and then came the twins, Silva and Wilford. Jennifer and Stephen had a boy and a girl. Judy married a Marine from Maine who works in a company where I am the boss. Joanne married Measly Mike, and they opened a bar close to the farm. Life feels much better this time around.